Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Ronald and Benita Coleman in an episode of The Halls of Ivy from 72 years ago, March 3rd, 1950, and it seems that a very young genius student has a crush. It wouldn't be so bad, but the crush is on Mrs. Hall. We thank you for tuning in on this Sure Happy It's Thursday, 3rd day of March. It is the 62nd day of the year, and we have 303 days remaining until we get to 2023. U.S. Mint created by Congress in 1791. Alabama Territory created in 1817 by splitting the Mississippi Territory. Congress passed the Missouri Compromise on this date in 1820. It prohibited slavery in the former Louisiana Territory north of the 36-degree 30-minute parallel north, except within the boundaries of the proposed state of Missouri. Florida admitted as the 27th state of the Union in 1845, and for the first time, Congress passed legislation overriding a presidential veto in 1845. Department of Interior created by the U.S. government in 1849. On that same date, the Congress passed the Gold Coinage Act, allowing the minting of gold coins. Idaho Territory organized on this date in 1863, and Congress authorized formation of the Freedmen's Bureau in 1865, a federal agency formed during Reconstruction to aid distressed refugees of the American Civil War. The Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation opened on this date in 1865. That's the founding member of HSBC, that banking group. You know them. Congress enacted the Comstock Law on this date in 1873, making it illegal to send any obscene, lewd, or lascivious books through the mail. First ever organized indoor game of ice hockey played in Montreal on this date in 1875, and in 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes privately inaugurated as the 19th President of the U.S. His public inauguration would be on the 5th. U.S. Geological Survey created on this date in 1879, and in 1885, AT&T Incorporated in New York State. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany became the first person to make a sound recording of a political document using the Thomas Edison cylinder recording system. J.D. Rockefeller announced on this date in 1910 his retirement from managing his businesses so he could devote full time to being a philanthropist. Time magazine published for the first time on this date in 1923. Star Spangled Banner officially adopted as our national anthem on this date in 1931. Mount Rushmore National Memorial dedicated in 1933. On that same date, President Hoover signed the Norris LaGuardia Act into law, opening the doors to increased unionization. Oil discovered in Saudi Arabia on this date in 1938. And in 1966, a British Overseas Airways Boeing 707 flew into a mountain wave after the captain decided to give the passengers a close-up view of Mount Fuji. All 124 people aboard killed.
10, 9, we have ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The launch of Apollo 9, the first test of the lunar module on this date in 1969. And in 1971, South African Broadcasting Corporation lifted the ban of Beatles music from radio play. Now, the ban had been in effect since August of 1966 into response to John Lennon's quote, saying that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. Well, here's what John Lennon had to say.
I wasn't saying the Beatles were better than Jesus or God or Christianity. I was using the name Beatles because I can use them easier. And I was using it, because I can talk about Beatles as a separate thing. But I could have said TV or cinema or anything else that's popular.
Now, the lifting of the ban did not extend to John Lennon's compositions, vocals, or solo work. Those still stayed banned. In 1991, an amateur video captured the beating of Rodney King by L.A. police officers. In 2002, citizens of Switzerland narrowly voted in favor of becoming a country, or their country rather, becoming a member of the United Nations. And in 2005, Steve Fossett became the first person to fly an airplane around the world solo without any stops, without refueling, a journey of over 25,000 miles in 67 hours and 2 minutes.
You're a really lucky guy now. Got to achieve my ambition. Thank you.
Quite an event. Well, Fossett is believed to have died in a plane crash in September of 2007 in the Sierra Nevada mountains. His body wasn't recovered until almost a year later. The Nintendo Switch released to the public back on this date in 2017. Passing away on this date in history, Lou Costello.
What time is it? Why, it's time for the Abbott and Costello Show. We're on the air for ABC here in Hollywood.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go with the Abbott and Costello Show.
The intro for the 1948-49 Bud Abbott Lou Costello Show from ABC. Lou Costello passing away on this date in 1959. He was still very young. He was, 53? Also passing away on this date, William Frawley, Fred Mertz. Also Gladys Kravitz from Bewitched, Alice Pierce. Also Danny Kaye, dancer, dance instructor Arthur Murray. Broadcast executive Fred Friendly. Athlete Roger Bannister, the first man to run the 4-minute mile. And you remember this fella from MASH, David Ogden Stiers. Those folks all passed away on this date in history. This is the birth date of Alexander Graham Bell, Jean Harlow, and Montgomery Scott. Scotty in the original Star Trek, James Doohan.
Klingons called you a tin-plated, overbearing, swaggering dictator with delusions of godhood.
Is that all?
No, sir. They also compared you with a Danubian slime devil.
I see.
And then they said that you were...
I get the picture, Scott.
Yes, sir.
And after they said all this, that's when you hit the Klingons.
No, sir.
No?
No, I didn't.
What was it they said that started the fight?
They called the Enterprise a garbage scow.
I see. And that's when you hit the Klingons.
Well, sir, this was a matter of pride.
Scotty, you're restricted to quarters until further notice.
Thank you, sir. That'll give me a chance to catch up on my technical journals.
Oh, what a delightful character he was. James Doohan, Montgomery Scott, in the original Star Trek, born on this date in history. Happy birthday to Jennifer Warnes. She is 75 today. From Saturday Night Live and Police Academy movies, Tim Kazurinsky is 72. Rapper-actor Tone Loc is 56. From Modern Family, Julie Bowen is 52. Bud from Married with Children, David Faustino is 48. Mrs. Justin Timberlake, Jessica Biel is 40 years of age today. And from Fifth Harmony, singer Camila Cabello is 25. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the third day of March as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
From 72 years ago, March 3rd, 1950, Ronald and Benita Coleman in the Halls of Ivy on this Thursday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.
Are you suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes? Did you know that these are just two of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 72 years to March 3rd, 1950. Ronald and Benita Coleman starring in The Halls of Ivy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company of Milwaukee, Wisconsin presents The Halls of Ivy, starring Mr. and Mrs. Ronald Coleman.
I was curious. I tasted it. Now I know why Schlitz is the beer that made Milwaukee famous.
If you like good beer, you'll find it pays to be curious and learn about Schlitz for yourself. And now, The Halls of Ivy.
The halls of ivy that surround us here today, and we will not forget, though we be far, far away.
Welcome again to Ivy. Ivy College, that is, in the town of Ivy, USA. Spring came to Ivy a few days ago, and in spring, as we all know, a young man's fancy lightly turns to thoughts of love, just as it does in summer and autumn and in winter. Sometimes it doesn't turn lightly at all, but with a resounding crash, and as in many crashes, it's the innocent bystanders who are most shaken up. No bystanders are more innocent this evening than Dr. William Todhunter Hall, Ivy's president, and his wife, the former Victoria Cromwell of the English stage. It's shortly after dinner, and Dr. Hall is in his study. Mrs. Hall enters and says,
Was that you making all that racket just now, Toddy darling?
Yes, I was feeling a bit chilly and thought I'd build a fire.
Oh, well, why didn't you?
Well, having cleaned out the ashes, broken up a crate for kindling, and carried in 3 huge logs, I don't feel chilly anymore, just overheated. But don't go yet, Vicky. I've got a problem.
What is it?
Well, I've arranged all the papers on my desk neatly, sharpened all the pencils I could find, changed the ribbon in my typewriter, and cleaned the keys. Now, what else can I do to put off the moment when I have to go to work?
Oh, Toddy, now please buckle down to it. Otherwise you'll be up half the night, and it isn't good for you.
All right, my dear. Very well. Here I go. Hooray, an interruption. I mean, isn't that just too bad? About to... Hello, Dr. Hall speaking. Who? Oh, no, not at all, Brooks. What is it? Yes, of course you may come over. Where are you now? In a few minutes, then. Goodbye.
Who was it?
Young Brooks. Sounded very upset.
Isn't it Professor Quincannon's job to attend to students who sound very upset?
Well, it's little enough for me to do for Ivy's star athlete. But speaking of Professor Quincannon, we had lunch together today, and he reminded me that it is March, and time for us to prepare for our annual kite-flying competition. Won't you come out and watch us?
Well, of course I'll come. But isn't this annual kiting contest among the Ivy faculty a bit juvenile?
Oh, tradition, my dear. As an Englishwoman, you should know about that. England is full of delightful traditions. For example, in the year 1043, an archer stumbled, let loose a shaft which took the King's Chamberlain's prize pig in the left flank, and every year on March the umpteenth, a fast courier rides from Wolverhampton to Windsor Castle with a broken bowstring and a flitch of bacon. That sort of thing.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Like celebrating your American Independence Day by shooting off Chinese fireworks.
Anyway, you know, Professor Quincannon is still convinced he beat me last year because I didn't use the correct amount of string.
Oh, yes. You used too little, didn't you?
Well, not at all. 900 feet to every 10 square feet of lifting surface. It's a mere matter of correlating the aerodynamic factors with the weight and tensile strength of the string. I worked it out mathematically.
You certainly did. Toddy, when Brooks comes, you will make an effort to keep it short and get to work as soon as you can, now won't you?
Oh, as I promised. But it's important that I see him. Between now and the Easter recess, when the students get a chance to blow off steam, is the most difficult period of the school year. I must do what I can to ease the strain wherever it appears. Yes, what is it, Penny?
Excuse me, sir, but you asked me to look for your kite.
Oh, yes. You found it?
Yes, sir. It's in the attic.
Is it in good condition?
Oh, yes, good as new, except in some respects. I used the cloth for cleaning rags last summer, sir.
Oh, well, that can be replaced, as long as the rest of it's all right.
Oh, it is, except for the frame. I had a need of kindling for the fire last winter.
Oh, no.
Well, the rest of it is just as you left it.
What rest of it?
The tail, sir. Oh, excuse me, the doorbell.
Yeah, if it's a Mr. Brooks, Penny, send him in.
Yes, Mum.
Don't be upset, Toddy. Penny wasn't deliberately destructive.
No, she's quite impersonal about it, but so is an earthquake. And the consequences are just as devastating. However, if I remember correctly, I've another old kite in the cellar somewhere. And Oh, come in, Brooks, come in.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mrs. Hall.
Good evening.
Hope I'm not interrupting something.
No. We were discussing nothing more important than kite flying.
Oh, yes, I remember watching you and Professor Quincannon on the Commons last year. He, outflew you, didn't he?
Well, yes, it so
if
happened
I may
that
suggest, sir, try using a little more string this year.
Thank you. I've taken the trouble to work it out mathematically.
William, may I remind you that there's a desk full of work waiting for you?
Oh, yes. Well, what can I do for you, Brooks?
Would you prefer to speak to Dr. Hall alone?
Oh, no, ma'am. I haven't come to talk about myself. It's about my roommate, Merton Sevada.
Oh, yes, you remember Sevada, Victoria, the child prodigy?
Of course.
Now, has some friction developed between Sevada and you, Brooks?
Oh, no, sir, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think he likes me very much. And I know darned well I like him. He's an awfully good kid, sir.
I rather thought putting you two together was a good idea. It seemed like a natural combination, considering your experience as a counselor in boys' summer camps and his extreme youth. How old is he, by the way? 15?
Yes, sir. And working for his M.A. in physics.
Yes. Well, is Sevada in some difficulty?
Yes, sir. I didn't realize it at first. He's such a funny combination of grown-up man and little boy that he takes a lot of figuring out. But he's been acting so strangely the last couple of days.
In what way?
Cutting classes, something he never did before. And sitting up writing almost every night, all night.
Writing? Writing what?
You wouldn't say. And he'd lock everything away in his trunk when he was finished.
Well, now, that's very selfish of him, wasn't it? Who does he think he is to want a little privacy?
Oh, no. Mrs. Hall, I wasn't trying to be snoopy. But I'm worried about the kid. He's in a tailspin, and I want to snap him out of it.
Well, I think that's very commendable, Brooks. That's what roommates are for, to take turns acting as lifeguard when the other member goes off the deep end.
Well, anyway, this morning I found this stuff in his wastebasket. Here.
No. Thank you. I'd rather not read it, Brooks. Not being his roommate myself, I must respect his privacy. Just tell me, in general, what it is.
Poetry.
Oh.
Love poetry. It's sickening stuff.
Oh, you men. Well, I've known a lot of boys who wrote poetry. Some of it to me, too, if I do say so myself. And very few of them got fitted for straitjackets. And leave the boy alone. He'll recover.
Well, that's the point, Mrs. Hall. He'll recover too late. I found him packing his trunk when I got back from dinner. He was leaving school. I'm afraid some little bobby soxer has been giving him a rough time.
Oh, good heavens.
Well, I think it's beautiful. It's tragic, but it's beautiful.
I don't know, Victoria. I can only see the tragedy. No schoolboy romance should require such a drastic solution. This takes it out of the comic Valentine class and makes it a serious emotional problem. Where's the boy going, Brooks? His parents are in, New Zealand, aren't they?
Yes, sir. He hasn't seen them for 2 years. His father's attached to the American embassy there. But I think he has an aunt and uncle living in Washington.
Excuse me, sir. There's a Merton Sevada here to see you.
Oh, well, I suppose you'd better show him in.
Is there any way I can get out through the rear of the house? I don't want the kid to think I've been going behind his back. I mean, especially since I have been going behind his back.
Well, I'll show it to you.
Goodbye, sir, and thank you.
Goodbye. Don't worry about Sevada. Trust me.
I do, sir.
Mr. Sevada, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Sevada.
Good evening.
This is an unexpected pleasure. Please, sit down.
Thank you. I'll be brief, sir. And then I'll ask a favor, if I may.
Of course. Feel perfectly at home.
I do feel at home. After all, we're both men of the world.
Quite so.
I'm leaving Ivy, sir, tonight.
Oh? The curriculum is not satisfactory?
Perfectly. You realize, sir, that I took my A.B. at Columbia last year.
Yes?
And in one more year, I'd have my master's degree here at Ivy. It's got nothing to do with the school, I assure you. It's just that I'm in an emotional situation that cannot be resolved. Une affaire de cœur. A matter of the heart.
I understand French, Sevada. I want you to know that I respect your feeling and your resolve, but that I don't think you ought to consider leaving your studies until you've explored every other possibility, including the asking of advice from an older man. Won't you tell me about it and see if I can help?
Well, I'm in love for the first time in my life. Never even considered it before. Career first. Everything else second was the way I saw it. Ha!
Doesn't the lady return your love?
She doesn't even know I exist.
You've never told her how you felt?
No, sir. It wouldn't help. You see, she loves another man.
Well, you can't be certain of that, until you ask her.
Taking a chance on love. Yeah, Ronald and Benita Coleman, The Halls of Ivy, as it was originally broadcast Friday, March 3rd, 1950, right here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
This is an urgent news alert from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The war in Ukraine is a humanitarian crisis Europe has not seen since World War II. Fellowship staff and partners are on the ground in Ukraine helping with evacuations and providing emergency aid, food, medicine, and other essentials to Jewish families caught in the line of fire. Yael Eckstein, President and CEO of the Fellowship.
We want to make the strongest impact in caring for the basic needs that the Bible outlines. So the Fellowship is providing food to the hungry, clothing to the naked, medicine for those who need it, like those elderly who are homebound and need medicine, shelter for the poor, and focused on the orphans and the elderly. That's what we do. So I'm asking you, continue to pray. Pray with us because these are lives that are at stake.
Learn more about the work of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in Ukraine at ifcj.org/crisis.
Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on this Thursday, an episode of The Halls of Ivy starring Ronald and Benita Coleman, as it was broadcast Friday, March 30th, 1950. In the newspapers of that Friday 72 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Legislation to open the way for government seizure of the struck coal mines introduced last night by Senator Morris, the Republican of Oregon. The bill may come up for a vote in the Senate Labor Committee at a meeting scheduled for this morning. Morris's action was prompted by federal Judge Richard B. Keech's ruling yesterday that the United Mine Workers Union is innocent of contempt of court in the strike of 372,000 miners. It came as the government desperately sought means to get the men back into the pits. President Truman gave no indication of what the administration might do next. State Department indicates that the U.S. recognizes Chiang Kai, the Czech rather than General Lee Sung, as president of Nationalist China. State Department said it's received formal notification from the Chinese ambassador and the Nationalist foreign minister that Chiang has resumed the presidency. Lee was at a luncheon guest of President Truman yesterday. Senator Wiley, the Republican of Wisconsin, demanding yesterday the Department of Justice take action to revoke the citizenship of Frank Costello, whom the senator described as an underworld kingpin. He said that if such action against the New Yorker is successful, then I, for one, will insist that he be promptly deported. Wiley made the demand in a statement urging Senate approval of a resolution by Senator Kefauver, the Democrat of Tennessee, calling for a $100,000 investigation into organized crime. Director Robert P. Sith of the County Welfare Department in Columbus, Ohio, ruled if a family can afford a television set, it cannot receive poor relief. He said he found some families using part of their welfare allowance to make installment payments on television sets. And D.D. McClintock of Decatur, Illinois, needed a two-way stretch to satisfy a one-way itch. He used part of a woman's foundation garment to get to the bottom of things, which is where he wanted to scratch, but he couldn't. The itch was on his ankle under a cast covering a broken hip. Well, desperate, he advertised for an old-fashioned whalebone corset stave. No response. McClintock went to a corset department of a department store. Lady clerk sympathetically went through her stock and came up with just what he wanted. McClintock slipped the stave into the cast and scratched and scratched and scratched. And those some of the day's top news stories is reported in the newspapers of Friday, March 30th, 1950, on your radio, The Halls of Ivy, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater.
I never thought of that.
Ask her, my boy, ask her.
But what about the other man?
Oh, he'll have to take his chance, just as you do.
You're very wise, sir.
Oh, no, not at all. Now then, would you care to tell me who she is?
Your wife, sir.
Would you mind repeating that?
Your wife, sir. And that brings me to the favor I want to ask. Before leaving, have I your permission to speak to her?
My wife? Mine?
I can understand this comes as a shock to you, and that you naturally wish to discuss this with her before I see her. With your permission, sir, I'll withdraw for a half hour or so and speak to her when I return. Good evening, sir. Thank you.
Vicky! Vicky, where are you? Vicky! Vicky!
March 3rd, 1950, The Halls of Ivy on this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater on your favorite station. You know, I've told y'all how much my feet hurt from time to time, and I've also told you how much I enjoy getting to work, because right here under my desk I have a pair of my slippers. Mike Lindell's new invention with patented fill, the My Pillow fill that, he works in the pillow so well, comfort memory foam, patented impact gel, and it has an indoor-outdoor sole for all-day use. Right now, they are on sale. If you go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, you will see My Pillow slippers at 50% off, but only for a limited time. Plus, you'll get Mike's softcover book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, use my promo code USA, or call 1-800-951-8175. Use my promo code USA. Savings on overstock items, too, at mypillow.com. On Friday's Classic Radio Theater, Vincent Price as Simon Templar, the Saint, from 71 years ago, March 4th, 1951. That'll be on Friday, but right now the conclusion of The Halls of Ivy, starring Ronald and Benita Coleman, March 3rd, 1950, 72 years ago today.
Beloved, the halls of ivy that surround us here today.
As we return to the halls of Ivy, where a triangle has developed on the quadrangle, we find Dr. Hall torn between amusement and concern, as he says.
Have you any idea of what you're going to say, Victoria? How you're going to carry it off?
Not the slightest, William. Well, I suppose I could say, I'm sorry, Merton, I'm already bespoke. But I'd like you to think of me as your sister. That's a little wheaty, isn't it?
But the word is corny, Victoria.
Help me, Toddy.
Well, first you say, how do you do? Then you say something about the weather. Then after that you just improvise.
Now, why couldn't I have thought of that?
Oh, my dear, I'm certain you'll handle it very well. You've met situations just as difficult with tact and dexterity.
Name one.
Well, the faculty tea, for instance, a few days after I first brought you to Ivy. You told me you'd never been so fearful in your life.
Oh, I remember. Oh, Toddy, I was so afraid they wouldn't like me. I thought to myself, one look at me and Toddy's career suffers a 30 or 40-year setback. An actress in these sedate surroundings. And a musical comedy actress at that.
Well, I don't mind telling you now, after so many years, that it was a crucial moment in my life, too. Will you ever forget that short walk from our house to the faculty club? It was an evening in May, as I recall, and you seemed perfectly all right. Until we closed our front door behind us, and then... What is it, Vicky? Why have you stopped?
Oh, please. Let's go back into the house. I simply can't face all those strangers.
They're not strangers, darling. I've known some of them a dozen years.
Well, I've hardly been here a week, and I've never seen any of them before in my life. Please, Toddy, we can telephone. We can make some excuse.
Oh, darling.
It's going to be dreadful. There'll be a murmur of conversation until I appear, and then it will die away as that battery of eyes converges on me. Toddy, I just can't go in there and open cold.
No, look. How would you like me to go in first? Doing a buck and wing. I can be singing, hello, hello, there's going to be a show. That might warm them up.
Toddy, don't laugh at me. Not when I'm feeling so inadequate.
Ah, you've no reason to. They'll all adore you. You'll be the loveliest woman present.
I can imagine how much the wives of the faculty members will adore the loveliest woman present. Toddy, let's go back. Well, at least let me change my gown.
But it's a beautiful gown.
Yeah, but it's too beautiful. Let me change to something simpler. With brogans, a pair of overalls, perhaps. I just don't want to be resented. I'm the strange bird in a barnyard, and I don't want to be pecked at.
Vicky, you're not going to be pecked at. You are impeccable. No, darling. You're going in wearing that gown, and everyone will gasp with admiration, and I'll be the proudest man there. Sailor, I have spoken. Now, give me your hand.
I feel as though I were on my way to the gallows, and I didn't even have time to eat a hearty meal. And I've forgotten everything you've told me about who's who.
Well, the head of my department is Dean Gurney. He resembles a bilious pigeon.
Oh, yes, you told me. I remember I associated his name with crusts of bread.
Yes.
Because one does feed pigeons crusts of bread, doesn't one?
That's right.
Well, thank heaven I'm certain about one thing. One does feed pigeons crusts of bread. How do you do, Dean Gurney? Do have a crust of bread?
No.
Merely associating. And then I shall say to him, please introduce me to your wife. I've heard so much about her.
No, I wouldn't, darling. Inasmuch as she left him to marry a prize fighter, I feel it would strike rather as silly. I told you, don't you remember?
No. Oh, Toddy, I don't remember anything. Not anything at all. What shall I do?
Vicky, I love you. One unkind word or glance directed at you, and I shall ask the entire faculty to step outside en masse. And remember this, my darling. No appointment, no job is worth more to me than the smile on your face, the happiness in your heart, and above all, the gay and gallant spirit that is Vicky.
Darling, thank you for buckling on my armor.
Well, we're in for it now, darling. I've rung the doorbell. Now, just remember that faculty wives are merely...
Toddy, darling, that's our doorbell, and you didn't ring it.
I didn't. You mean you did? Ah, brave girl. Now you're getting yourself in hand.
No, Toddy. That's our doorbell. Come on home, dear.
Home? Well, then what is... Oh, our doorbell. Yes, well, Penny will answer it. I'm sorry if I was being absent-minded again.
That's all right, Toddy. But next time, don't squeeze my arm quite so hard. Mr. Sevada will think you've been beating me.
Sevada? Oh, yes, good heavens, I must get out of here. It'll be less embarrassing for him if he doesn't see me.
Oh, Toddy, please don't go. Get me out of this.
You trust me, Victoria. I'll think of something. I hope. Somebody's got to think of something.
Mr. Sevada, Mum.
Yes, thank you, Penny. Well, come along in, Mr. Sevada. Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
It's, lovely weather, isn't it? May I improvise you... may I get you some milk and cookies?
I'm not a child.
I'm sorry.
Please don't be sorry. I wouldn't hurt you for anything in the world.
Well, thank you. You're very gallant. I've been told you're leaving school. Why?
I think it best. Staying here near you is... Well, I'm not made of marble, you know. If I thought there was even a remote possibility... But there isn't, is there?
Well, I think not. Aside from every other consideration, I happen to love my husband deeply.
I don't see how you can.
You don't?
No. Why, he's old enough to be my father.
How old do you suppose I am?
Just the right age. Victoria. I may call you Victoria, may I not?
Yes, please do.
Victoria, what does he have that I haven't got? I'll match my IQ against his any time.
Well, it's not a question of intelligence, Merton.
Maybe you think I couldn't support you. I have assets. I'm writing a book, and I could sell my butterfly collection, and I get a regular weekly allowance.
Oh, it isn't that at all, believe me. I know, we all know, how capable you are, and what a fine career you're certain to have.
Do you think he's handsomer than I am? Because I can promise you that someday I'll be just as distinguished at the temples as he is. Runs in the family.
Yes, I'm sure of it. I consider you an extremely presentable young man. And I know that someday you'll meet the right girl and be very happy, and then I hope...
Then there's nothing I can say that will make you reconsider.
Merton, tell me, what did you imagine a relationship with me would be like?
I know what it would be like. I've thought of it 1,000,000 times.
Tell me.
Well, you'd always be around. And you'd wave to me when I left for school in the morning. And we'd go to theaters and concerts together. And I'd tell you things, and you'd tell me things. And it would be so wonderful.
I think I'm beginning to understand.
Are you really?
Yes. Merton, tell me something. But look deeply into your heart and reflect a moment before answering.
I will.
Is it really a sweetheart you want? Isn't it really a mother? There. Come on now. That's it. You're all right. Come over here. Take my handkerchief. Give me your hand.
Oh, Mrs. Hall. Mrs. Hall.
Yes, I know how it is, Merton. Believe me, I do. Well, I used to cry myself to sleep for a mother I never knew. I lost mine when I was still a baby. Now, at least you have a mother.
Yes. I guess that's right. I suppose it's childish to be so lonely.
No, it isn't childish at all. Well, I think one has to be pretty self-centered not to be lonely. But now that you realize that it is just loneliness...
Well, Victoria, and how do you... Oh, well, excuse me. Hello, Sevada.
Hello, Dr. Hall. Well, the reason I was holding your wife's hand, Doctor, is...
No, please. That requires no explanation, Sevada. The impulse to hold my wife's hand is practically universal. And I didn't mean to intrude. I just came in here to... what did I come in here for? Oh, yes. I was mending a kite, and I wanted some string from the desk drawer. Some kite string. It was in this desk. I'm sorry if I seem to be babbling.
William, there are miles of string in the kitchen. Ask Penny.
Well, I won't require miles, darling. I'm not trying to break the record, whatever it is.
It's 21,120 feet.
What?
The altitude record for kites. 21,120 feet.
Oh.
Established in November 1905 at the Prussian Aeronautical Observatory.
Thank you. Are you a kite flyer?
No, kites are for children.
Really?
I think you're wrong, Merton. Dr. Hall is certainly not a child, and he finds it most difficult at times to fly them.
Probably uses the wrong amount of string.
I do not use the wrong amount of string. I use approximately 900 feet to every 10 square feet of lifting surface.
Too little by far from what I know of the theory.
Well, indeed, let me tell you something.
Merton, now, please, may I suggest that instead of merely discussing it, you both go out to the fields tomorrow morning and there determine who is right and who is wrong.
Well, now, that seems... Isn't he leaving school?
Are you, Merton?
I suppose I could put it off for a day.
It may take weeks to settle this matter. What do you say, Merton? Can you put off leaving for more than one day?
I guess so. I mean, yes, of course. We can go out together every Saturday morning, all three of us.
Exactly.
I think I'll stay.
I'm delighted, Mr. Sevada. Confused, but delighted.
Well, come along, dear, and sit down.
Thank you. I trust, Sevada, you won't think me intrusive if I hold my wife's other hand.
No, sir.
Good. Now then, are you acquainted with aerodynamics?
Yes, sir. What kind of a kite do you fly? Flat or box?
Flat. I like a...
Try a box.
What do you mean? But
I say that because theoretically four-plane surfaces
But the
versus
four-plane
a single-plane
surfaces don't give you-
surface gives you a lifting potential far greater
yes,
than...
but against that you have added weight, as I've worked it out mathematically.
The added weight, Doctor, when you consider the applied theory...
Yes, I know, my boy, but the theory of flight in heavier than aircraft presupposes that a split turn of air... I was curious. I tasted it. Now I know why Schlitz is the beer that made Milwaukee famous.
And now here again are Mr. and Mrs. Ronald Coleman.
Well, I hope young Merton Sevada will be all right now.
Oh, yes, Toddy, he was just lonely. And all alone bewept his outcast state.
That's all very well, my dear, but you know Mr. Shakespeare really wrote that sonnet for lovers like you and me. Oh, I think of it often when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts, myself almost despising, haply I think on thee. And that's you, Vicky. And then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings.
Thank you, darling. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
We'll be seeing you next week at this time at the Halls of Ivy, starring Mr. and Mrs. Ronald Coleman. The other players were Henry Blair, Gloria Gordon, and Barney Phillips. Tonight's script was written by Walter Brown Newman and Don Quinn. Music was composed and conducted by Henry Russell. The Halls of Ivy was created by Don Quinn, directed by Nat Wolf, and presented by the Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ken Carpenter speaking.
Oh, we love the halls of ivy that surround us here today, and we will not forget though we be far, far
from March 3rd, 1950, The Halls of Ivy on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please thank this station and support their advertisers. It is their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around. Our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting, and contact me there, classicradio.stream. Our shows are also available through iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon. Just search for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.